Welcome to The Echo Was Me, a space where survivors rise, share their stories, and remind the world we are never alone. My name is Finley, and I'm a 33-year-old survivor of two domestic violent marriages. And thank you for joining me. And sorry this episode is late. We did postpone because we were having a couple of days with just family, and it was a lot of fun between different foods and just kind of driving around, hot chocolate, little pre Christmas music. And yeah, it was much needed, but I am extremely exhausted, so I'm going to get through this and go to bed. So, this topic, um, I was reading about how abusers like to withhold car keys from their victims, and I had actually posted something a little bit about how my abuser specifically would use the car as a way to scare me and a way to threaten me. And I had kind of spaced out the part where I was also withheld the car keys when I wanted to leave, when I wanted to take the kids and go. And so I don't I don't know. Obviously everyone's story of domestic violence is different, but for me, I remember so many times where I would want to take the car that was in my name, given to me by my mother, and I would want to take the car keys, and I'd say, I need space, I'm going, and next thing I know, she's in front of the door, or she's grabbed the keys out of my hands. And that was at the beginning. So at the beginning of our relationship, she would take the keys from me. And as it progressed more into the relationship, she kind of got to the point where she knew if we were having a certain kind of argument that she needed to grab the car keys first, so I couldn't grab the car keys. And I would leave them, of course, on a little hook in the kitchen so we could both just kind of grab them when we needed them because we had only the one car. And it got to the point where she just knew, and I could be walking back to my room, I could just be and just in the mid argument, I either hear the keys or see her take the keys. And I knew at that point I wasn't going to get the keys back, and if I wanted to leave, I was going to have to call somebody to come get me. It was very frustrating. It was like hurting cats is the best way I can put it. There was just no getting through to her that, hey, I would like to take my car and I would like to get out of this situation right now with my children because I am not feeling very safe. I don't want to be screamed at. I don't want the kids to see the screaming going on. Like, I think it's good we need space. She just didn't understand that. Um, I know if I wanted the keys, and there had been a couple times where I was just so over her taking the keys, I would stand in front of her and talk to her. And because she didn't want to be blamed for abuse anymore, at this point, this was a good like 5 years after the last time she had hit me, she would try to get past me, and she would get just close enough that she could be like, "Oh my gosh, you're touching me. You hurt me. You're bumping me with your hip and I'm not doing anything to you." And every time I just rolled my eyes and I said, "Listen, you can go past me." I said, "But I want my car keys to my car or I'm calling the cops." And of course, threatening to call the cops always turned into this whole thing of like, well, you can call the cops, but I'm going to tell them this, this, and that. And at that point, for a victim, you literally sit there and you are half intimidated by the cops showing up, but the other half is like, don't want the neighbors to see. Do I really want to go through this? I'm just so mentally exhausted with this person acting like a 5 year old when they're in their 30s. And that's where I was at that point towards the end of our marriage was I was just really embarrassed and I was just really done and I was emotionally exhausted. She had just worn me down to the point where it was almost just like, okay, let's just give her what she wants like a child versus really sticking up for myself. And the few times I did try to stick up for myself, it never went. It went awful. It was like, oops, gotta put the pacifier back in the baby's mouth. So with the car, it usually came down to that a lot at the end. And the points that it would get to that I didn't like that she would do is sometimes she would take one of my children with her in the car, and I knew that she had been drinking. And I would be like, "No, you're not taking a kid with you in the car. This isn't going to happen. You've been drinking." And she would try every single time, and she did succeed. She did succeed a couple times. And one time I can remember was last year, and I was so close to moving out of the apartment at this point. And I called my sister to come get me because my ex-wife was not going to let me have those keys. She wasn't going to let me leave the house with my children. And my oldest son was 12 at the time, and he had grown pretty big. And this child, as I'm sitting out the waiting for my sister to come, this child tells me he needs to go back in the house and get something, the apartment. So I'm sitting in the parking lot, which is right outside our apartment, and he says he needs to go get something. And Chrissa's in the car, and she's just fuming, and you can tell she's mad. And my sister had called, and I'm distracted at this point, and he runs and gets in the car. And I'm just like, no, you cannot take off with him. Like, give my child back. And my son is just sitting there smiling. He's a child. He has no idea what he is doing. He doesn't understand. It's confusing time. Mom separated from, the other mom, and I don't know who to believe or what's going on, but I knew that she had alcohol in her system, and I knew that she was going to go buy more alcohol. And me being not in my right mind, my sister came. I waited for, I called my ex and I said, "You have 10 minutes to get back here. I'm calling the cops. Bring my child back. That's actually kidnapping. That's not your child. I've asked you to bring my child back." And she did within the 10 minutes. And so, that was one of the more scarier parts of my life with my children in a vehicle, because they didn't fully understand. They do now. They definitely understand now. But they didn't seem to think that she had been drinking, because she lied to them about drinking and driving. How she said she would never do it with them in the car. And yes, we've had a lot of discussions about that and things. So the other things that she would use the car for in our relationship, the scarier side of it, we would be in the car driving, and I would be sitting there and something would trigger her. You just never know in a domestic violent relationship what's going to trigger your partner or where it's going to trigger your partner. And you really think that when you're in a car, they're not going to want to put their own life, because they're narcissists, right? They're narcissists. They think about themselves. It's all about them. And so you just don't think that they're going to want to put their own life in danger for even a second. Wrong. They will take you with them if it's the last thing they do. And that's why so many women, it's hard for them to leave, because an abuser would rather be dead knowing you're dead also than just let you live and him take his own miserable life. And I remember a few times on the road, she would speed on the freeway. If we were on the main road, she would speed up and slam on the brakes. And I just remember the seatbelt locking, and it hurt so bad when it would pull me back. And she would just keep screaming. And sometimes we'd be so close to home, but she would keep circling and driving elsewhere and just keep screaming at me until I said the right things, the right apology or whatever she wanted to hear. I don't even know what she wanted to hear. And it was awful, because you can't get out of a moving car, and you don't necessarily want to get out at a stoplight, because again, as someone who is a victim, you know they're going to get out. You know they're going to yell at you. It's going to draw attention. Things are going to happen. And you don't want to explain to the cops what's happening with that. You don't. And so, of course, I let it go every time. I let her scare me with her driving behind the wheel. And there was times too on the freeway where she would swerve. And I can tell you right now, she wasn't sober for any of those. All those times she did any of that stuff, she had drank before, she was drinking during. Um, and I know, it's stupid. I just kept getting in the car with her. But you just, as a victim, in that moment, it's better to just, at that point, do what they want than to just fight them. And I just never thought the car would be used as a weapon or a way to trap me somewhere to just scream at me and insult me and berate me and even a couple times get physical with me. I remember there was the few times that she would grab my hair or she would mid sentence with me talking, she would roll her hand up into a fist and she would just hit me in my chest. And I remember just gasping for air at that point because she hit so hard and in the right spot. And it was so crazy to me because you're in a car. You take your eyes off the road for a moment and anything bad can happen. But then, as I'm healing and reading other people's stories and the more I get into this, I just don't think abusers are scared to die. I don't think they are. I think for some, a main goal for them, whether or not they know it, is to just take the person they think they love, the person they've tortured, the person that they've made feel lower than low, and take them with them and die. And I think in the end, it's not a regret for them. It's literally just like, if I can't have you, nobody else can. So if we're gonna die, we're gonna die together. And so car rides were a trigger and a stress during that entire relationship. And a lot of times I would try to take the keys and drive. And that obviously didn't go well either. It was a fight of, why don't you trust me to drive? Why can't I drive? Why do you want to drive? And if I told her why, because you open up alcohol in the car, she wouldn't listen to me. I will say I did put my foot down when it came to the kids, besides a couple times that my children went behind my back and got into the car. Not their fault. Just happened. A lot of stuff happened, but I did put my foot down when I started to tell her, you are not allowed to drive the kids. And so while we were married, that was actually one of the few things she complied with. And so if we went somewhere and the kids were in the car, I had to drive and she was not allowed to drive. And I don't understand why that was the one thing she complied, one of the very few things she complied with, but she did. And I will forever be grateful for that because my kids are alive and my kids are safe. But it just sucks knowing that she's out there probably drinking and driving with somebody else and somebody else's children because she doesn't care if she lives or dies. And I really felt like this was a good topic for tonight. Because as like I said, as I'm diving more into this topic and I'm joining more pages and groups of people talking about their stories, I noticed a lot of things about car keys being hidden and women being abused in cars and cars being used as a way to scare and threaten the abuser's victim were coming up. I just started to remember more and more things about what I was put through when it came to the car keys and the vehicle and my abuser. And I am lucky enough now to have somebody who he does drive 99% of the time, but it's because he's a safe driver. He doesn't withhold the keys from me if I'm wanting to go somewhere or I just need to cool down or what have you. It's not a, I'm going to withhold the keys from you. No, it's, do you need a minute? Here's the keys. And being with him definitely makes me feel safer being in the passenger seat. I don't feel like I need the control. And I don't think that this is something a lot of people talk about when they come out of a domestic violent relationship. And I hope that every single one of you who has experienced the passenger seat with your abuser behind the wheel, seeing red, that one day driving for you can be enjoyable again. Taking a little road trip out into the middle of nowhere can be enjoyable for you. That you can trust somebody else to drive the car. And I know for some people it might seem weird, it might seem silly that this is something, but it is so scary in that moment when somebody else's life is whole. Your life is in somebody else's hands. It's terrifying. And so I will say, if you're in the situation with an abuser and they start to take your car keys and they start to road rage with you in the car, it's time to start thinking about an exit plan before they take you and themselves, because they will. Because, like I said, whether or not they actually think it, it is an end game to never let you go if they can help it. And as usual, at the end of my episodes, I would like to give out the resource numbers. The domestic abuse hotline is 800-799-7233. The suicide hotline number is 988. And I am, before I close out completely, I have 2 interviews set up, and I'm hoping that this is where my podcast goes 100%, is interviews with other women, and even some men, because we all know that domestic violence does not discriminate. So I'm excited to get those set up over the next couple of weeks. So thank you all who have listened so far to this podcast. And thank you for listening to The Echo Was Me. Remember, you are not what happened to you. You are here. You are healing. Until next time, stay strong and keep speaking your truth.